Hey everyone, welcome back to the third episode of the Hybrid Couple podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Jason Vong, and sitting right across from me in this very janky setup is my partner in crime, wearing black and a gray blanket, is Vivienne Lee.
That was a horrible introduction.
I don't know, I was trying to come up with a different title for you because you asked for it, so...
That really sells the point. So welcome back, everybody. I'm Vivienne. Welcome back. It has been about a month.
Wow.
I think since we last talked to everybody. It's been a crazy month.
Very crazy.
That's probably why we've been gone for a month. But we're not silent. I mean, we have been posting on like Instagram and things like that. So quick plug, if you want to keep updated with our many, many journeys, follow us on Instagram at JasonVMedia and at Hello Vivienne.
Yeah.
So we're not dead. It's just, we're just not podcasting.
Well, there was one week we were kind of internet dead because we didn't have internet because we were in Cuba, but we'll get into all of that in just a bit. So this podcast topic is all about travel. So what's the specific topic about travel that we're going to talk about today?
So today we're going to talk about travel and our evolution of travel as a couple, how we used to travel before and how we travel now. So the reason why I chose today's topic was because the reason why we're gone for the last month is because we spent pretty much a majority of it traveling. And that's when we haven't had any time to properly sit down and record a podcast. So let's recap, Jason. What have we been up to for the last month or so? Where have we been?
Yes. So, wow. Okay. So let's just try to remember. So in August, what were we doing? We were, okay. I remember now. So I think mid-August, I went to the first ever Sony B Alpha event in New York. And on the same day, Vivienne so happened to be in San Francisco for her cousin's wedding.
Yes.
And we were separated for like one weekend. And then right when we got back, we went to San Diego to shoot a cough, cough, secret project, cough, cough, that will tell you cough, cough later, cough, 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 cough.
Be obvious.
We'll tell you more about that later. But we were in San Diego for, a couple of days. And then after San Diego, we went to Cuba. We went to Cuba for like a whole week. It was horrible because we missed out on a lot of like camera news.
It was not horrible. It was horrible.
No. Of course, yeah. The trip itself was fantastic.
You're not selling it. It was. Hey, we went to Cuba. It was horrible.
Let's just say this: if you're a content creator who posts every day on Instagram and YouTube, it might not be the best spot to go to.
Timing was just bad. Not bad. It was just very weird timing because a bunch of things got announced when we had no internet.
Yes, and we'll get into more of the Cuba stuff in just a bit. But after we got back from Cuba, I think we literally had a week to rest, and then we had to leave immediately to San Francisco for the cough, cough, secret event, cough, cough, cough.
It's not a secret anymore.
Yeah, it was the press event for the Sony G Master 24mm 1.4.
Awesome.
So by the time you're listening to this, we might already be in the next destination. So we'll see. But anyways, we're not here to talk about or brag about our travels. We're here to talk about
humble brag.
It's a humble brag.
I'm so tired because I got to go to all these places.
And that's totally not it. I mean, like, we're incredibly grateful for all the opportunities for traveling, but we do want to talk about, the struggles of traveling as well, especially being in a relationship and in a working relationship.
Perfect. So before we go into that, let's talk about our trip really quickly. We'll just recap Cuba. I think that was like our big trip because it was an international trip. We'll go ahead and recap that. How did you like it, apart from it being horrible in terms of news? How is the actual trip itself?
Okay, so let's just give you guys a little bit of a preface. I feel like I'm always struggling. With this.
Preface versus preface. Didn't we go into this last time?
Yes. Well, anyway, preface. Let's just preface this a little bit. So the reason why we were in Cuba is because we got invited by Sony Arts Scott Robert Lim and our great friend Marcus. They invited us out to Cuba to shoot a little behind the scenes as well as some tutorials for Scott. And their destination so happened to be Cuba this time around in August. So they asked me if I wanted to come along. And then I was like, yeah, heck yeah. Maybe me and Vivienne would definitely want to come check out Cuba. So Cuba, I don't know. I do a bad job talking about the history of Cuba, so why don't you go ahead and
The
take over
history
this,
of Cuba, I don't
or
think
like
I'll
or like
do very well.
the I don't know, what is it?
Like significance, I
The
guess.
significant, yes, the significance of
Yeah.
Cuba.
So, I mean, we went for Cuba for a portrait photography workshop, just to recap that really quickly. And that's partially why we went, so we can learn a little bit more from Scott about, how to properly shoot and like do all that fun stuff. And also because it's Cuba. So, Cuba has been a very interesting destination just because it's not very easy to get to from what we've heard. I think there's definitely some visa issues and there's a lot of history behind, the United States and Cuba. And then since Obama kind of lifted the embargo a couple of years ago, travel to Cuba has been a little bit more accessible. But it was never an area that we felt like we could have ever went on our own. It was not something that I felt very comfortable like planning or trying to figure out how to get there. So luckily this time when we went on this trip, we had an amazing tour guide. We had everything really set up and we had, transportation covered. So it was a lot easier for us because we don't speak Spanish and we basically knew nothing about the country. It was a really big learning experience for us and a big cultural shock. It was also really hot and really humid, but the people there are lovely and beautiful and incredibly kind. And it made us learn a lot about appreciating what we have. I think that was a huge thing.
Yeah, just to piggyback what you said earlier about like how it's a hard destination to get to. Like this is something that I think it's not easy to get into Cuba if you just want to go for like tourism. I mean, you
Because you
have to,
can't, at
yeah,
least if you have like a U.S. passport,
right.
you can't be like it's just for tourism.
So you had to go for a purpose. So we definitely went for
Support of the people,
support of the people.
which we really did because where we lived and a lot of the experience that we had, it was really dealing and interacting with a lot of the local people, which to me was a really nice part of experiencing Cuba because we got to really see Cuba for what it is.
Right. So one of the big things about traveling to try to go to Cuba and, trying to go there for tourism is that you have to deal with stuff like what Vivian had to go through being detained at the airport for a couple of hours. So what
Yeah.
happened was when they scanned our check-in bag, they found this square-looking thing inside of our suitcase. And what it was a Aki USB hub. It's a square little USB hub. If anybody has that. Funny thing, my mic is plugged into one of this Aki USB hub thing. So, anyways, they found that in her bag and they questioned her. They're like, "Is this a switch? Is this a switch?" Which to they meant was, "Is this a Wi-Fi switch?" Because,
Which I don't even know what that is, to be honest. I don't
yeah,
know
we
what
have
a Ethernet or Wi-Fi
no
switch
clue.
is.
Yeah, so Cuba's a communist country, so the internet access there is
I think it's a little bit more controlled. Definitely that was a big thing is
yes.
that Wi-Fi is really hard to access there. You have to pay for it and you have to be in certain areas or hotspots or like hotels or things like that in order to get internet. I think you're not allowed to have it in your homes just because
Yes.
I'm pretty sure the government kind of regulates and looks over the internet.
So that's probably why that she got questioned. So I was freaking out outside because I got out. No problem because, it's me.
Those things were his, which infuriates me.
We all thought it was my gimbal, my Crane 2, but it wasn't. So, yeah. So how was that whole process?
I mean, it was good. It was just like language barrier, and they were really nice to me the whole time. It was just kind of explaining to them over and
They
over.
didn't do bad cop, good cop on you.
No, none of
What
that.
is this?
No,
What is this?
they were
What are you
really
trying
nice
to
to
do?
me.
Are you trying to steal the Declaration
No,
of
I was.
Independence?
What? Why would I? What?
Oh, I don't even
Dude, I
know.
don't even think they have a Declaration of Independence. It was. I mean, they were really nice to me. It just took a longer time because their whole process is more paperwork oriented, and they don't really do anything on the computer. Everything is kind of very analog. They have to write everything down, so that's kind of why it took a little bit longer than it would have anywhere else. But other than that, I mean,
Yeah.
I got out okay, and I'm not in jail or anything like that, so that's good.
And we went on our merry way. Cuba, I really enjoyed. I mean, like people were right. It feels like you're traveling back to the 1950s. Loads of these classic cars that were driving around. A lot of these architectures that still exists. A lot of friendly locals, very friendly. They were saying that Cuba is like one of the safest countries to be in. Never at some point we felt any sort of danger. We did get a lot of looks because we were Asian, but aside from that, nothing really nothing really dangerous ever happened.
Nope, it's a very safe country. The people are really nice. In a way, it's kind of nice to get away from internet and social media because you're really there to interact with people and just really take the time to see everything and not focus like on your phones. It was really nice seeing people walking around without looking at their phones all the time. You know, people in the neighborhoods go out and they chat with each other, and it was a really nice friendly like camaraderie there.
Yeah.
So while we're in Cuba, so we were there for work. So let's talk about that. What did we do in Cuba apart from we shot a video? So we shot the Tamron 28
8.
to 75
Yes.
review.
Which is doing fantastic, by the way. It's like at almost like 45,000 views.
Yay.
I was surprised because I was like, oh man, this lens is like kind of like old news, and I don't know if it will have any good
It was
reception.
because we shot it in Cuba. I think the
Yeah.
cinematics made it really beautiful, and I think we did spend a little bit of time trying to plan out our shots a little more this time. This time Jason scripted when we were in Cuba after seeing some of the sites. So we really like were very intentional on how to figure out what to incorporate in
Yes.
terms of our shots, which is
That,
not something that we had done before.
which we'll talk about. But just to give you guys a little bit of our production process out in Cuba, that way when we tell the next story, you guys will have a better understanding of the frustration that we have traveling together. So, yes, we definitely had the full intention of shooting the Tamron review out in Cuba. I just thought it was perfect. I'm a huge fan of doing these, out of country camera or lens review just because I feel like, we're able to showcase and capture the beauty, the essence of wherever we are at. So definitely want to do more of that. So the whole point of the whole camera review is just to show off the lens capability as well as show off the town that we were in. So Cuba, beautiful, beautiful. Again, we had this gorgeous background. Nice blue skies, a lot of clouds happening in the background, a lot of colors, especially in the car. So we had a lot of fun shooting the Tamron review out there. And like Vivienne said, I was scripting, I was planning the shots and everything while I was in Cuba, just because it's really hard to try to incorporate the environment when you're not there. If you try to like write something beforehand and trying to figure out where to shoot, it's kind of hard. Not to say you shouldn't do any pre-production beforehand. You definitely want to have all of your talking points. But for me, I felt like what really worked in Cuba was the fact that we were able to kind of explore the first couple of days, kind of get to know what Cuba was like before starting to plan where we would shot what sort of talking points that we wanted to do. So I feel like because we were able to do that, I was able to make some cool jokes, some funny jokes.
I don't know if they're cool jokes.
Vivian's rolling her eyes, but just like things that kind of help elevate, the talking points. So I think definitely that helped out a lot, just being able to be there and script and do all that.
The whole point of this podcast today was to talk about how do we get here.
Yes.
It was not easy, and it's not like we figured out how to do this the right way because it was definitely a really hard process and for us to get to the point that we are at now where we're shooting and we are kind of having mini vacations along the way. So let's talk about Japan.
Oh boy, here we
Let's
go.
talk about
The great
Japan of 2016 or 2017?
2017.
It was 2017? No, it was
the
2016.
2017.
We didn't go in 2017.
But it bleed into 2017.
Oh, so it was Japan 2016/2017.
Right. The Great Japan debacle. Oh boy, here we go. All
Also
right.
known as the A6500 review.
Oh boy.
Japan A6500 review.
Man,
So
I'll tell you guys this: the A6500 review was quite the debacle.
it was a sore point, and I think it finally took us how long? Like a year that we're finally able to kind of talk and joke about this. But me and Jason went to Japan for 2 weeks in 2016, probably the end of 2016.
And let me just say this first: this is around the time that the A6500 just came out, and I was super excited about the damn camera because I was just like, wow, APS-C camera, in-body image stabilization, minor fixing the overheating issue. I'm like, this is awesome, this is great. I'm gonna take this to Japan because we're gonna go to Japan. I'm gonna make a review about this camera. Yada yada yada.
Yeah. So Jason was really excited about this 6,500, and I was just excited to go on vacation.
And this is before Vivienne quit her job.
So I was in my 9 to 5 job. I had the typical 2 weeks vacation out of the whole year, and I was saving up my vacation because I like to do big, like international trip, big grand vacations when I take my vacations. So we were like, let's go to Japan. We love Japan. Let's go ahead and do something, and let's go to a bunch of different places this time when we go to Japan.
Yeah, we almost did like a south tour of Japan. We went to Tokyo, we went to Kyoto, we went to Fukuoka, and then we rode back up to Hiroshima. We stopped by Osaka for a little bit,
We
and
went to
then
the Miyajima Islands too as well.
we went to the Miyajima Island, and then we rode all the way back up to Tokyo, and then flew home.
All
But
within 2 weeks.
all within 2 weeks. So while we were there, I barely got the A6500. So I was like, man, wouldn't it be great if I was using this on vacation and talk about my user experience with the camera? This is great. This is fantastic. So prior to the trip, I was like, okay, I'm going to write as I go. I'm going to shoot as I go. I'm going to edit as I go.
It was a horrible idea.
It was a very naive thing for me to think because one, I haven't really traveled all that much beforehand, right? So then I didn't know what to expect. So when you're traveling, especially going out to a foreign country, you don't expect a lot of things, like you have to. Vivienne did all of the planning. She planned our itinerary, the spots that we had to hit up. But the thing about going to these foreign spots is
travel. And also, Jason didn't really communicate with me that he wanted to shoot a 6,500 review, so I didn't know what it entailed.
well, you knew.
I knew, but I didn't know what it entailed.
Right, you
And
didn't know
here-
how long it would
Yep.
take and what the whole process
I didn't
is.
know because I wasn't really officially helping you at that point. I was
You
still,
you were helping, but you weren't working with me.
No.
It wasn't your job. Your vacation was your vacation.
I treated this as a vacation.
For me,
But it was not a vacation.
For me, vacation was also to shoot this review as well. So the thing about me is, you guys have to understand, I want to get the fire B-roll. I want to get like my talking points all nailed out, even if it takes like 50 or 60 takes.
Gosh.
And
Anyway,
we'll-
so I
and we'll
planned
get
the
into that.
itinerary, and I was really ambitious this time because we've been to Japan before, but this time when we were going back, we were like, let's go to different things. Also, we had to go all the way down to Fukuoka because Jason had to go to a concert of one of his favorite bands. So that is the only reason why we took the train all the way down to Fukuoka.
Okay,
So
and
we
that's because they were doing a Tokyo tour, but then the time that we were there did not coincide with them playing in Tokyo. They were playing down in Fukuoka, so I was like, we had to take a train right there. But I'll have to say, we had a lot of fun going down to Fukuoka, and we were able to visit Hiroshima.
I love Fukuoka, but
So
anyway,
it was a good excuse.
it all worked out, but that was like the reason why I had planned for us to go to Tokyo to Fukuoka and hit all those stops in between was because we were going to such a further destination south. So I was like, okay, let's go ahead and do this many days in Tokyo, then we'll take the train down. And to be fair, the train rides were about 2 hours one way. So we forgot to account for all that. So we were planning all these locations. I was planning all these tours of all these museums and these shrines and these locations that I wanted to see and that I wanted to eat. But then we also had to take into account the fact that it took time to travel there. So we'd have to either be in a taxi or we'd have to be in a train. And because we had to go to so many packed locations during the time, we would spend maybe 1 to 2 days in one place, and then we'd have to make it to the train in the evening to go to the next destination. So when we were there, every single time we would stop at a place, Jason had to shoot a talking point.
Right. And this is with a script that's not even finished. It was just like little talking points about each section of the camera that I was like, "Ooh, wouldn't it be cool if we shot it out here? Okay, let's just shoot right in front of this castle or this shrine or these gates." I was just like trying to do all this. And this is us not having to even gone inside of the thing yet. We were
So
shooting.
the nice thing about Japan is everything is beautiful
It
and
is
cinematic.
beautiful.
So everywhere we went, we're like, okay, we have to shoot.
Right.
But the problem is that because we had to shoot, we had no time to go in and actually enjoy the place. So the way
Right.
I like to travel is I like to take my time. And I like to look at everything. I like to read everything. I like to talk to random people. That's like how I travel.
Right. So
So that didn't work out with us
because we were shooting right in front of the landscape behind it, the beautiful landscape behind us, so that we never got inside. And by the time we finished my 50 takes and my 10,000 fire B-roll, it was already dark. The museum is closing, or the castle is closing. People are filing out, and we had to go catch the train, like Vivian said. Oh.
it was hard, but okay, there's a bunch of factors. What, right? Like the trains leave on a certain time, so we had to catch a certain train at a certain time so we can get to the next train at a certain time. So it's not like we could have stayed there forever, or else
Right.
I don't even know how we would have left. And it was so hard being in front of such a beautiful location and never being able to go in. I swear, like the whole time I would just stare at all these people that get to go in and out. Tears would form in my eyes because I would get so upset that Jason wouldn't let me go in. And here's Jason running back and forth doing 50 takes of the same line, whereas I couldn't discern like the difference between the takes, but he was like, "No, that wasn't good. We have to do the next one," because he's a perfectionist. So there's an example after. But we were in this beautiful shrine in Kyoto, and it was a hard shrine to get to because we found it by accident. Like we were kind of walking along the trails, and there was this beautiful shrine. It had these rocks. It was just absolutely gorgeous. We walked in. Jason's like, "Oh, this is a beautiful area to shoot. There's a big open land with these rocks in the back.
We were
Let's
we
go
were
ahead."
shooting an autofocus test of me running back and forth and doing jumping jacks.
Yep. So Jason did that probably 20 or 30 times. That jumping scene. He would just do it he would run into screen, jump up and down, run out. He'll be like, "Oh, I didn't do it well. Gotta do it again."
No, there was so many things to it. One, either I didn't do it well, or the autofocus wasn't working the way that we wanted to, or the Atomos screen wasn't recording, or the camera wasn't recording, or we're not in the right setting, or we didn't do
Or
this,
there
we
were
didn't do
people
that.
in the background. And
It
there
was
just a lot of things.
Yes.
So by that time we finished, it was already dark. It was like
It wasn't
getting
dark, but we had to go.
But we had to leave. And I remember I was so upset in like the taxi or the train. I was like about to cry because I was like, we were standing in front of such a beautiful location and I couldn't go in. I just literally stood outside and I stared at it from outside. And that was
All right, this is gonna make you very upset, but
what?
that part never made it to the review.
You have got to be kidding me. You have got no way.
Okay, yeah, that part never made it to the review because the whole point of that thing that we had to do, the whole running back and forth, was that I wanted to show the fast, 11 frames per second or whatever from the 6500 and the fast autofocus, like almost like a sports test. Because there's no way I could shoot a sports thing out in Japan. I didn't know how to communicate with someone taking me to a sporting event or something like that. So I was just like, okay, I'll just create a scene right here. I'll just jog back and forth in front of the camera, side to side, and all that stuff. And it ended up not working out. So what ended up happening was I got back to the States. I hit up Danny, that one camera guy, because he shoot a lot of sports stuff. And this is prior to the Monday Live. We haven't really talked to each other. So I was like, hey, man, can you send me some of your sports footage about the 6500? Because I wasn't able to get any of that in Japan. So in hindsight, it worked out because
it did not work out. You didn't even use those clips after we spent
it caused me to have to ask Danny to send me those clips.
All right, Danny, if you're listening to this, the fruition of you and Jason's relationship came from out frustration.
Yes. So there you go. So a good thing did end up happening because
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't. Oh, that makes what?
Yeah.
Oh, I hate you.
Yeah, but hey, I mean, we made a pretty, kick-ass review. What is it now? We have 200,000 views on that video.
At the end of the day, it's one of our proudest videos. But yeah. I definitely had to
a lot of sweat, a lot of tears, a lot of blood.
I had to give up a lot because it was so hard to go to such a beautiful place and not be able to go in. And I think I needed to let go of that because I was starting to get a little bit of resentment. I was like super angry at Jason the whole time. I would make comments like, "Oh, like I didn't even get to go see this. Like, what's the point of me being here?"
She was very upset, and no one can blame her. I mean, like she being at a 9 to 5 job like that, your paid time off vacation is only very limited, right? Like 2-3 weeks to a month at the very best. For me, I was I still had a job.
You had like time off, but because you were like kind of more freelance, it was just unpaid.
More flexible.
Yeah, it was a lot more flexible.
So it wasn't very fair of her. So then, we got back to the States. We had like, a talk.
It took me a while to talk about why I was upset, but it was a very aggravating trip. And I think Jason was like had a lot of stress over it because he would go back and review those clips and you would hear me in the background when I would say like go or next clip. You can
Very,
hear
very frustrated tone.
my frustration, and I it was a lot of like anger and resentment that was like bubbling up from that trip. So we had to have a huge talk where we had to be like, okay, you know, Jason was ready to be like, all right, in the future when we travel, we're just not going to shoot. We're not going to work at all. But I didn't want that because I felt like work and what you did was such an important component of our lives that like I couldn't, I would feel bad not doing something while we were somewhere. So we had to come to this balance where it worked out better in Cuba where we had to communicate with each other what we wanted to do.
Well, Cuba is definitely different from Japan because now you're fully working with me, so you have to be working on this with me, right?
Yeah. But
I mean,
then
like we what we're trying to say is we have to have a clear distinction now between what is vacation and what is work. So I think what we're trying to do right now is try to split up the days where okay, these 2 days we're focused on just exploring, just having a vacation, and these are the days that we're gonna focus on working. So we gotta have to find
oh,
that
this
split.
goes into like New York when we went to Photo Plus. So I was still at my job at the time, but you went to Photo Plus to attend Photo Plus. And I remember I was kind of frustrated during the first couple of days because I wanted to go and do the touristy thing and explore New York, but you were busy, doing stuff at the convention.
Right, because we had to. Well, one, it was the A7R3 launch, and
Yeah.
I obviously had to cover that. And being at an event like that, you have to make coverage, you have to make YouTube content. My full intention of going to New York was to cover Photo Plus in some way
So
or shape
I was definitely a little bit frustrated in the beginning, but then as
because it's more a vacation for you.
yeah, but as the days went by, I kind of realized like, oh, like why am I getting upset about that? Like I can go very well explore New York on my own. I had some friends there. I ended up hitting them up, and overall it became a really nice trip. But there was a little bit of like that lingering. Like I felt like okay, I have to help him shoot, but at the same time, I was trying to find that balance for myself to enjoy New York as a vacation. And then Jason was also very understanding and being like, okay, there's some days maybe I don't need you to hold the camera or shoot, go ahead and explore on your own. Or maybe, he went and he shot during the first half of the day and then he met up with me later in the evening and we would go do something together, like more touristy. So I think we kind of started to find that balance in New York and then we kind of built on that as time went on. But it really is communication, like sharing with Jason what I wanted to do, what our schedules are going to look like when we're there, and trying to find that time. Or knowing that if we're going for work, it is for work only. I mean, things are different now that I don't work a 9 to 5 and I'm working with Jason.
Now everything is work.
Yeah, now everything is pretty much work. But then with Cuba, I shared with you I wanted to go to the beach. I wanted to do certain things. So we were able to kind of accommodate our schedule a little bit better so that I still felt like I really got to see everything that I wanted to see in Cuba
That's good.
without
But I
sacrificing.
also had to prep you, and I was like, you have to understand. In Cuba, we're gonna be doing this. We're gonna be shooting behind the scenes. We gotta be doing this. So you were properly prepped that it wasn't gonna be a vacation, but we tried and we did our best to at least have one day where we enjoyed Cuba for what it is.
Yep. And I mean after Japan, like Jason went, he traveled a lot that year after and there was a lot of frustrations through his
Oh boy.
travels at the
Oh boy.
time.
This is all unraveling out
No,
now.
I mean he
Okay.
ended up going back
I
to
thought we were stopping
Japan.
there, but we're gonna keep on
And
going,
then he
guys.
went to like Europe by himself, and I was so jealous. I was like, "Oh my god, I've always wanted to go to Europe." And here's
Okay.
Jason going to France, and he doesn't even like food, and I was just so jealous. And then he ended up going to like
I love food.
a bunch of trips in Vegas, and there was times that
Okay,
I
you're
was
you're saying like I'm
frustrated.
out there having fun. Okay, let me just say this: I was there for work.
Well, I
Any-
understand that now.
Well, they don't understand that because you didn't tell them that. So let me go ahead and tell our lovely viewers that. Okay, so I was in Europe because I had to shoot a wedding in France. Okay, and I so happened to be like, okay, well, if I'm gonna be in France, I'm gonna go to London as well. I'm gonna make a little bit of a Europe tour. Maybe he wasn't able to come with me because of work.
I wasn't that upset about that one. That one, I think we had okay time. I think the one that I was kind of upset about was when you went to Vegas.
Yeah, so Vegas wasn't for gambling. Vegas was for all these other
It
trips.
wasn't for gambling. It was for strippers.
Well, I have that extra dollar bills, you know what I'm saying? But anyways, no, I was in Vegas for all these trade shows, like what is it, NAB, CES, WPPI. I don't even know what Vegas trip
It was a lot of Vegas
it was a
trips.
lot of Vegas trip for sure. I don't even like Vegas all that much. I get homesick all the time whenever I'm out in Vegas. But obviously, again, I'm there for work. I'm also there for networking.
And also
So
at the time when Jason was doing all those Vegas trips, I was in the last job that I was at. So there was a lot of moments where I was really frustrated and unhappy. And I would see Jason all happy on social media. And, I would see him doing all these cool, fun
fake
things.
positivity.
No, but then I think that led to a lot of the frustration. And we did culminate to like a pretty big fight at one night where I don't even know what I was really that upset about, but I think it was because I had a really bad day at work and I just felt like, I felt really bummed that here I am stuck here while Jason was in Vegas, running around, doing things, going on a giant Ferris wheel, like all this stuff.
Seemingly look like I'm having fun.
No, I mean, you were
Okay,
having fun.
okay, I was definitely having fun, but at the same time, I was there to do work. On times that I don't post on social media, there's work involved, there's networking involved.
It
Um,
wasn't necessarily like me jealous of Jason. I just felt very like stuck. And that lends into my whole like why did I leave my job? It's because I was like so upset at my job that I was like venting all these frustrations out at Jason for no reason. It really takes a lot for the other person to realize that it's not on you. Like you should travel. Like you should do what you have to do for work or you should do what you have to do. But like their happiness is not dependent on you having to like make them happy, right? Like it's really finding that inward happiness yourself. And for me it was just I just wasn't in the environment that I felt like I was happy. And because of that it just projected onwards. And poor Jason felt like he couldn't travel anywhere. And we definitely sat down when we came back and we had a talk, like just like why I was feeling this way. I had to really think through it for a couple days. Jason's shaking, pointing his finger at me.
Wagging my finger, like, why are you feeling this? Why are you doing this to me? So, what is our advice that we can impart to couples who are in this similar situation?
I think it was. I mean, it took time to get to where we are
Really talk it
at,
out. I
and
think
I think
talking is
talking
like
it out, and I think, Jason now is really being more proactive and including me on the trips. Well, because I can now,
I and here's the thing. I always want you to be part of the trip. I did not once say you cannot come with me, nor did I like not give you an invite. Every single one of those events that we talked about, you had an option to come
yeah,
with.
and I
It
knew,
was
but I
just
just couldn't.
you couldn't.
And I
Okay.
think I lacked that. It was because I lacked that flexibility. So I think a lot of it is just you yourself, if you're dealing with your partner always traveling or vice versa, it's just you coming to realize like what do you need so that you're comfortable. It wasn't like when Jason was traveling, I was worried about who was he talking to or what was he doing. It was never like that.
Yeah, dollar bill strippers. You know what I'm
What?
saying? Anyway, what?
Huh?
Huh?
No, but it was never those types of worries because I trusted him completely. But it was always this like for me it was like FOMO. It was like the fear of just missing out on like being able to travel and do all of that. So that really led me to realize like what was I missing from my life and my environment and from my career that was keeping me from being happy about that. And really realizing that I need to make that change. And then I think with our working relationship ourselves was figuring out what do me and Jason need when we go travel in terms of working and balancing vacation and having fun and enjoying the place that we are at.
So our solution is Vivian quits her job and she can travel with me. So
That is
there you go.
not
Done
the
story.
be all solution for everything.
Yeah. So cool. Um hopefully the next time we travel when we make the podcast, we can give you guys some updates and some
I want to
improvements.
try recording a podcast while we're traveling.
We can definitely do that.
Let's do that next time so that we don't leave everyone hanging for a month.
Yeah, that's horrible. I'm sorry, guys.
I know I missed everybody.
There's really no
I
excuses.
really hope people are still listening.
Yeah, hopefully, hey, for any of you guys who are listening, you guys are awesome, and we really appreciate you. Please let us know where you're listening from because we are officially now on iTunes, and are we on
Yay!
Spotify?
No, we're not on Spotify.
We're not
but
on
we
Spotify.
are on iTunes and Google and Stitcher. So I'll be sure to link all of that. Or if you guys are listening from iTunes,
Please
hello.
let us know where you're listening from. I don't care what you're doing right now. Grab your phone, hit us up on Instagram, DM us, letting us know, it's like, hey, I'm listening on Stitcher. Hey, I'm listening on iTunes, because
Or if you're even listening at all, just let us know you're listening.
yeah, just let us know you're listening. Anybody, I don't care if one person is just listening to this. Hopefully, this is helpful to somebody. And
I don't know if it was helpful. Like, what advice do we give? Just to quit your job? I don't think that's a good advice.
oh man,
I think the
just
biggest,
communication.
just communication. I think it's also, find like for you yourself, like finding a space where you're happy, and that could be either you go out, you find a sport that you love, or you go work out, or you pick up
Yeah,
hobbies that you
definitely.
love.
Okay, you know what? I think that's the advice right there. I think do not depend on your significant other to bring you happiness. I think you
Exactly.
talked about that, but I think I rounded it out for
Yeah,
you.
you said it a lot better than I did. I said something
Okay.
about dependent on something.
Yeah, don't depend on your significant other for your happiness. Really
You
find
make your
something.
own and find your own happiness.
Have some
Whether it is,
have
yep.
go out, get some friends, go play some sports, go drink
If
some
you don't want to make
tea,
friends, you go
drink
make
some
internet
boba.
friends, or go find a show that you
Wow,
love,
internet
or
friends could
find
be
some
creepy,
internet
but
chat hobby, or I don't know, do whatever it is that make you happy. You fly your freak flag. I think that was a line from Lady Gaga.
fly your freak flag. What?
I think that's
Man,
a
the way
lyric.
the way you're describing is like some dude sitting in his basement watching some thing and just letting
Naked?
it and just let his freak fly. I think that's exactly what you're trying to say.
I think that's a line from a Lady Gaga song.
Oh gosh.
You do you. Just do whatever makes you happy.
Yeah, do not depend on your boyfriend or girlfriend or husband and wife for your happiness. Cool.
Also, let's round it out. So if you have any stories that you guys want to share, if you guys had issues with your significant other with traveling, either maybe you're the one sitting at home all day, or maybe you're the one traveling all day, share it with us. We want to hear about it. What's our email again? The hybridcouplepodcast@gmail.com.
Yes, I think so.
Or leave a comment somewhere.
In the description box below if you're watching on YouTube.
And
Sorry, comment box.
And if you are listening on iTunes, if you like what you're hearing, give us a rate. That would help us a lot. And thank you guys.
It's either 5-star or bust, so don't leave anything under 5-star.
Don't listen to him. But actually, yeah, 5 stars is good. All right. Thank you guys for listening. And we hope to speak with you guys again soon. That's it.
Peace.
Bye.
And cue the bossa nova.
No. Oh, shit, my mic's off.
Your mic is off, but my mic is still on.
Sure is off.
So bossa nova's happening. 3, 2, 1.